and we are looking at the beginning of this story. Now, typically, I am not going to reread everything I wrote. That would be quite a challenge as we start getting closer to 50,000 words. My plan normally is going to be to reread the chapter I may be in the middle of, and then jump into the story that way. If I'm at the beginning of a new chapter, then I'll just start out. But today, I'm going to reread what I have so far, the first 2,700 words, and then we'll dive into getting it to 5,000 words today. So I do like the story so far. I think it is something interesting when it comes to zombie action. And again, my goal is to make it a 50,000 word action scene. Armand is ready. Tom Duffy appears to be ready too. So let's get this train going, as they say. Alright, so again, Ruthless, Rabid, Raging, Ravenous, Rampaging, Remorseless, Repulsive, Revolting, Repugnant Zombies by J. Wilburn. That is a title for the ages. Alright, Waldo Bloodfist struggled under the weight of the dead man trying to bite out poor Waldo's throat, but it was the fucking eyeball swinging from a gray thread of optic nerve that was so goddamn distracting to the point of almost being hypnotic. He called himself Waldo. This bag of bones was way too heavy. Waldo tried to squirm out from under him in the middle of the city street, but no dice. Through his arms... Okay, how do I want to say that? Through his arm... Yeah, that's fine. Through his arms, holding the hungry corpse away by a few inches, he could feel no muscle to speak of left on the we need to fix that. So we'll get that. Left on the zombie's frame, but the fucker had to weigh as much as 2 bags of concrete. The thing was crushing Waldo's balls. As more zombies took their time shuffling, I'm using shuffling a lot, so let me change that word here. Stalking in from all sides out of the crumbling ruins of the city. Alright, I'm using crumbling a lot too, so I'm going to switch that up here as well. Let's say the... No, not decaying either, because we got too many zombies in here, so they'd be the ones decaying. Let's just do eroding. I know that's more of has to do with land than buildings, but we'll leave that for now. Eroding ruins of the city. He tried to hook a leg and roll this piece of shit off of him, along with the terrible dangling eye. It did not work. Along with his crushing balls, grit and debris dug into his back. Then he remembered he had a pack underneath his shirt. It was probably the goods in there digging at his spine. Waldo clenched his teeth and growled out, "Fuck you to hell." He drove his right fist up into the stretched face. Okay, I don't think that's quite right. Into the, let's say, sallow. Into the sallow face, snapping teeth and swinging eyeball. Oh, look at that alliteration. It looks like I know what I'm doing around here. If he'd had time to think, he probably wouldn't have tried to punch out a zombie, but he was having a bad morning. Waldo's fist crashed into the already broken nose. As he bashed his knuckles through the skull, the face pulled loose from the oily bones and vanished inside the cold brains along with Waldo's forearm. Let's say Waldo's entire forearm. Painting a word picture here, that's what writing is. His fist crashed through the back of the zombie's head. Bone shards and chunks of viscera flew far enough to spatter the faces of more hungry corpses, closing the circle. Alright, I'm using hungry a lot, but I think I'll leave it for now. Of course, they weren't as far away as when Waldo let this dead man get the drop on him. He missed... Let's say his power punch somehow missed the eyeball. Missed the loose eyeball. There we go. Let's say, what a shame. See, I'm already getting words in and haven't even added anything to the story, really. What a shame. We'll do an exclamation point there. We'll just break all the writing rules, start throwing in exclamation points everywhere. It still hung almost low enough to dip into his open mouth. Waldo stared in shock at the dead weight settled on top of him. The struggle was over, but he was still pinned with time running out. Say the twice dead man's mouth folded open, just like Waldo's. A string of greenish drool, greenish drool oozed toward Waldo's chin. He turned his head hard to the left and almost got that gunk in his ear. All right, there we go. Nice and gross. That's what you got to do with a zombie story of this nature. All right, of all the surprises from his first time punching through someone's skull like a fucking superhero, the fact that all that gore still had so much red in it was unnerving. It was laced with the hue and the smell of deep wet rot. It took an effort to open his caked hands. The stuff between his fingers was sticky like tar. As droplets ran down his wrist, through the tunnel of the busted head, and to his elbow, more bits of grossness. I know that's in specific, but it'll work fine for this paragraph. More bits of grossness clung in globs around his opening and closing hand. Maybe some of that was the remains of the dead man's brains, but Waldo couldn't tell. Critique: way too much romance in this. I wish it had more action and gore. That's a fair point, Armand, and I don't think it comes from a place of jealousy at all, no matter what everyone else that knows us says. All right. Get the hell off your fucking back, he scolded himself in a strained growl. This guy really needs to watch the potty mouth. I mean, if I'm gonna sell this to a family audience, I don't know that Waldo's helping me out here. The zombies getting close enough to touch him with their long shadows growled back. All right, that's kind of a convoluted clause there, but it'll be fine. He couldn't understand them, obviously, but he suspected they were saying they'd be happy if he stayed on his fucking back like the idiot zombie snack he was. With everything he had, for what it might be worth in his final moments, he rolled the brainless corpse off him. The bones of the broken skull felt sharp, jagged, and threatening along the skin of his arm. There we go. But Waldo gave a backward lunge to pull himself free anyway. It didn't work. Something twinged in his lower back as he hauled the over-heavy corpse to its feet against his chest. Damn it all. They were on him. Too late to be smart, time to get desperate. Waldo wheeled backward as the zombies pawed at the body and the sticky coating over his trapped right fist. He stumbled over a wheel cast aside in the road, but kept his footing even with the great weight still hung from his arm. More zombies grabbed at his back, but without looking, Waldo kept running and, I can usually spell the word and correctly, believe it or not, and dragging backward through their arms. Okay, did I use the word arms twice? No, I did not. Miracle of miracles, he got out of the ring of closing monsters. Now they all converged from one direction, and he held up the faceless, dead shield between him and them. If he'd meant to do this, it would have looked very cool to anyone watching, he thought. He slammed his back against the side of some rusty vehicle. Waldo thought he was lucky it wasn't a jutting piece of rebar or some sharp point of metal instead. It was hard to appreciate his luck with the undead still tracking him. The glass behind his, let's say the population of undead. I need something more here. Population of undead. It's purely a rhythm choice there. It really has nothing to add to the story. Other than, I guess, the pattern of the sentence that I felt kind of fell flat. The glass behind his shoulder crinkled but didn't break. Tapping and squeaking followed. There must have been reanimated corpses still trapped inside the vehicle even after all these years. Waldo flexed his sticky fingers. I know how you feel. Okay, I used Waldo, so I need to drop to he here. Alright. Again, just a rhythm choice. It's also bad to have paragraphs start the same way, and I see several he's in a row, so we'll see if we do something about that or just let it go. He noticed the utility belt around the corpse's waist. It wasn't like Batman, more of a workman's belt. He felt around for anything he could use. The loops for hammers and other tools were empty, just his luck. He opened, okay, let's say, we'll change this to a supporting clause. Opening one of the pouches, comma, nothing more powerful than a comma, comma, he discovered why this bag of bones was so heavy. It was packed. No, the bag of bones wasn't packed. The pouch was packed with fully loaded magazines of bullets, not clips of reloads. No, these were entire magazines. Waldo didn't know guns well enough to tell which kind of rifle these would fit. The dispatched zombie that Waldo now wore as a bracelet, which I apparently misspelled. Yep, okay. Not anymore. All right, as a bracelet, had no gun to go with this ample supply of ammo. That was a lot to carry, and probably why this asshole became a zombie in the first place. Your friends probably left with the guns. With the guns, Waldo thought. Obviously, thoughts are usually italicized, but I'll leave it this way for now because I don't think it's distracting. All right, the undead mob pressed into the back of the corpse and pinned Waldo to the car. The belt full of useless magazines crunched into his balls again. He felt the cold lips of the zombies brush over the gooey sides of his fist behind the corpse's head. Waldo lifted the useless magazine in his clean fist, even though he knew that by the time you felt their mouths on you, it was already too late. How can it be already too late? I'm only in the first chapter. He slammed the blunt end of the magazine down on their heads, one after the other. Okay, do I want to say scalps? No, I'll say heads because I'm going to use scalp again later. He slammed the blunt end of the magazine down on their heads, one after the other. It gave a satisfying crack. It split the skin over their mangy scalps. There it is. It dented the exposed bone of their skulls, but it failed. No, I switched to present tense. That's amateur work right there. That's what editing's for, is to make you not look like an amateur to potential buyers. But it failed to breach into their red-black brains. He targeted the ones tasting his skin. A few he managed to reel backward, but he failed. I already said failed. But he, let's say, fell short of putting them down. Of putting them down. Or it could be putting them down if he's playing putt-putt. Who knows? No bites. He stared in wonder with the precious seconds he could not spare. The gore over his trapped fists smeared around, but no bites. They had their mouths on him. He felt... All right, let's make that a contraction, and then it'll be clear. No, that doesn't even work. They had. That's what I need. Whew, grammar is such a pain. I should write this in another language with easier grammar. They'd had their mouths on him. He felt them, but they hadn't sunk their teeth in. He wasn't complaining, but he had no explanation. The zombies backed up their pressure. Let's say backed off. That makes more sense. The zombies backed off their pressure just enough for him to draw a refreshing breath of their stink before they, let's say, putrid stink. You know, anybody can stink, but nobody stinks like a zombie. Nobody you should be friends with anyway. Come on now. Their putrid stink before they returned to crushing him. Waldo growled back and starting. Come on now, Jay. Let's just keep this in the same tense just for fun. Started beating them about their heads with the metal magazine again. The long bullets flew loose from the top as one impact followed another. The live rounds bounced against the roof of the car behind him and pinged off the cracked asphalt of the street between their feet. Finally, a couple of them cracked open. A couple of thoughtless skulls. We'll be saying skulls a lot in this story. A couple of thoughtless skulls cracked open and spilled their brains as they collapsed. Waldo's right shoulder ached terribly. Let's say, and started to cramp. That would make sense if you're holding up an entire body with a lot of weight on it. He unbuckled the utility belt, and it fell from the narrow waist of the corpse. There we go. It thumped the ground with authority. His tired arm, tired is kind of a weak word there. His quivering arm still felt weak, but the body was light in comparison to a moment before, let's say. If I keep adding prepositions and clauses and all that, I don't need two befores, that's cheating. If I keep adding prepositions and clauses, I may reach my 5,000 words without having to add any more story. Let's see what we can do. Waldo tried to shake the corpse off his arm. The eyeball on its withered string of optic nerves slapped against his cheeks. The zombies stepped over their spilled partners. They bypassed Waldo's gory arm and tried to reach him from the sides. Waldo seized the corpse's wrinkled throat. Seized the twice. We'll do this again. So it's kind of difficult to talk about a zombie that is still moving and then a zombie that has kind of been dispatched or whatever. So you kind of have to be tricky with the language a little bit so it's clear. Waldo seized the twice dead corpse's wrinkled throat, let's say with his free hand. With his free hand. Let's be even more specific, his free left hand. All right, there we go. As opposed to his unfree left hand. The flesh tore away in ribbons, but he succeeded in pushing the body down his arm a few inches. More dead hands clawed. All right, I'm going to need to watch that going forward. I don't know why I keep switching tenses. More dead hands clawed at his ribs through his shirt on both sides. Waldo lifted one knee and pushed the body a little more. He then braced his boot into its sternum and threw the body off of him into the surviving faces of the mob. Into the, let's say, the faces of the surviving mob. Remaining mob. Alright. I can use surviving later then. His arm was a cold mess all the way up to his elbow as opposed to a hot mess. The zombies reached for him like they appreciated his help in opening up the space for them. He used his raised boot to kick them back one at a time, but there were just too many. Waldo slid. There were just too many, and they were unimpressed with his kicking game. There we go. Waldo slid along the rusty side of the vehicle and rolled over the hood. As the zombies passed around the old car on both sides, he broke into a run. All right, that's the end of Chapter 1. I hope you guys are satisfied. Let me dive into Chapter 2, which will continue here in just a moment. All right. He rounded the corner at the next intersection only to find more and more of the city's undead coming out from their alcoves and shadows to see what all the commotion was about. They found out it was about Waldo, so they took after him as soon as they spied, as soon as they spied something warm-blooded, still creeping through their city. There we go. All right, hold on. Pardon me. Weapons. He needed weapons to get through this clusterfuck. All the bad words. Come on now, guys. You shouldn't put up with that. The city had been coming down for years now. It opened up gaps in the walls for zombies to escape and catch him. It also left large chunks of rock, stone, and bricks scattered through the unused streets. They aren't unused. They're zombies there. Let's say the underused streets. On the run, Waldo grabbed up one of these chunks with a nice sharp corner of brick showing through. He tried to hold it in his right hand, his dominant hand, but that arm felt dead from holding up that body all that time. From holding up, let's say, a body. We don't need two that's. All right. So he took the stone. Instead of blunt object, let's say blunt stone. I had one too many words there. Not supposed to take words out. I'm trying to get to 50,000. Why are you guys letting me do that? So he took the blunt stone in his dumb left hand. They got close fast. It didn't help that he had to run right into their path as they spilled out of the buildings on both sides. He had too many behind him to backtrack, so his only choice was to go through. Or he could die. That was the other choice. He smashed the brick side of his rock against the face of the first zombie to reach him. The first zombie to, let's say, blunder into range. I've already added 87 words and I haven't even started where I left off. The zombie staggered. I need to watch that I don't use staggered too many times. There's a lot of staggering in zombie stories. The zombie staggered but kept its feet under it. I'm going to take staggered out because I'm likely to use it again. So let's say the zombie lilted to one side but kept its feet under it, under itself. All right. The stone disintegrated in a burst of white powder, but what remained of his weapon dribbled out between his clean fingers. The zombie actually blinked. Waldo had never seen that before. White powder puffed from its nostrils like it was a cold day. Like it was a cold day, or the dead monster had snorted something. All right, isn't that clever? The undead monster. Oh gosh, I just messed up my own thing here. The undead thing. There we go. I call him a dead monster, and now he's going to be an undead thing. Now with its mime's face, came after Waldo again. Let's fix that. Its mime pale face came after Waldo again. He dodged around and grabbed another stone. As the zombie reached from the other side, Waldo swung the chunk hard into the thing's temple. He felt the rock crumble on impact. All right, I put a little extra letter in there, so I'm going to take that out. By the time I'm done with this, everybody will think I know how to spell. The zombie spun in place, but the only damage was a coating of white, let's say colorless now. Colorless dust on one side of its head. There we go. He grabbed up more rocks and knocked zombies back with more powdery explosions. None of them were stopped. None of them were stopped by these pitiful concrete jokes. All right. Rolling on. What the living hell, man? Whoever poured this stuff should be ashamed. He hoped every last one of them had been torn apart slowly and painfully by a mob of stinking corpses with dangling eyeballs. No wonder these walls had collapsed first. He tried to dodge through the growing crowd, but the street was getting busy. I don't know what bust means. Getting busy and he wasn't moving fast enough. Then there it was, sticking out from under a pile of blackened bones near one gutter. The bright red handle of an aluminum baseball bat poked out like a signal. Let's say beacon. There we go. It was a bright gift. I've already said bright. Let's say it's a shining. Oh, I misspelled beacon. It needs an A. It was a shining gift from the gods in a city of muted dead tones. This was, got an extra letter in was. This was the weapon waiting for a king to pull it free and conquer the undead world with it. He elbowed 3 zombies aside as he cut to the left and yanked the overbright bat free. It took no effort. Old bones from long-ended zombies scattered about the roadway as Waldo lifted the weapon, lifted the red club. And that's probably not a good description, but it's a different word. Glorious and perfect in the air, into the air. Waldo, let's say bludgeoned. I'll probably end up using that again later, but that'll be good. Waldo stood in place with his courage restored and waiting for the slow-moving threat to come to him. They seemed to be spread out nicely now. It was like they were teed up for him to bash their brains out in one clean swing after another. Home run derby, he cried. His voice echoed through the street as if he were sounding a dinner bell. There we go. Dinner bell is 2 words, apparently. All right, the first one, a bent old lady who was probably quite nice and beloved in life, shuffled up first. The handle felt perfect in his hands, the gore over his, let's say perfectly balanced. In his hands, the gore over his right palm gave him a nice firm grip. He swung away. The bat bent backward. I need a comma there, because I got 2 complete clauses on both sides of and. The bat bent backward, and the stress point turned... Okay. Never can have enough EDs in a past tense story. Turned pink-white as the weapon folded in half. The sweet old lady zombie pinched into the flesh under both his biceps with painful strength. As she opened her jaws to tear into him with the few teeth she had left, Waldo decided that she probably pinched her poor grandchildren like that when no one was looking. She was mean to her nurses and barked at young waitresses that served her. Waldo dropped the disappointing bat and headbutted the zombie. Her nose caved in and her lower jaw popped down and loose. Her eyes held him like nothing had bothered her, like nothing about it had bothered her, but his head throbbed with pain. All right, I'm going to split this sentence up. I was doing a series there, but it doesn't really work with the butt up there. No, I was right the first time. Hold on. But as his head throbbed with pain, comma, she lost her grip and her balance. Another comma. Dropping to her backside in the street with her ruined mouth, she tried for his calf anyway. Let's say one of her hips ground like the bones had shattered. Okay. Old ladies are breaking their hips, so I imagine old zombie ladies have the same problem. Waldo fought the temptation to kick her in the face out of frustration. Instead, he turned and ran. The zombies that seemed to be flowing endlessly out of every opening on both sides of the street filled in all around him again. He'd wasted his opening by placing too much faith in that beautiful red bat. Also, yelling in the middle of a zombie-infested city was never a good idea. All right, there we go. Got to call him out for being stupid. He had to swing wide. No, because he was already swinging a bat. He had to veer. Because I just had him swinging something, so if I use the word swing again, it's confusing. He had to veer wide around a cluster of shambling bodies, which brought him close to the cars parked forever. The cars forever parked, let's say. Forever parked on one curb. All right. Small detail, but it helps with clarity. Pieces of metal stuck out from under those cars. Waldo did his best to, let's say, yeah, I'm going to leave the word, no, I'm not going to leave over. I'm going to make it hurdle. I'll use jump other times, so might as well use something different now. To hurdle those pieces, but he caught one with his ankle. He expected to hear and feel the bones snap, but a metal pipe spun out from under a car and into the street with a clatter. Waldo paused again. He didn't want to get his hopes up. This might be just like that damn bat. The pipe was rusted and flakes. All right. Yes, I need a comma there. And flakes stuck up like sharp razors. He'd probably get tetanus just trying to pick it up. It would be a mistake. He should just keep running. Waldo grabbed up the long rusty pipe. All right, we're about to jump back into this story. It felt solid, but he wouldn't know until he tried to use it. This time, he didn't stay in place. He ran with the awkward but solid feeling pipe in his grasp. There's going to be a lot of grasps in this story, so I'll need to fix that later. Nearing the next intersection where he might find a clear path, let's say down another street, Waldo took his first swing. Took his first pipe swing, because he already swung the bat. He hit the lamppost instead of, not the lamppost, he hit a lamppost. This is not the singular most important lamppost in all the world. All right. He hit a lamppost instead of the zombies beyond it. Glass fell from above as rust shed off the pipe like dandruff. It did feel solid, though, as it vibrated up his arms. Let's say that was something, at least. All right, let me flip that around. We'll say at least that was something. That's much better. Flows off the tongue better. He had to use the pipe. He had to use the pipe sideways to shove the undead backward, and then he ran around the light post to get away. Glass crunched under his boots as he went. Let me do fled. Always use a better word if you can, because you'll use dumb words later. He swung again, but the damn zombie had its arms up. Let's say this. This is not the singular most important zombie ever. This damn zombie had its arms up, reaching for him. The bones broke in its... the bones broke, let's say, below its wrists. Below its wrists. and he managed to knock out a few of its teeth, but that wasn't good enough when it came to dispatching zombies. More of them were coming all the time, and Waldo wasn't moving. He gave out a whine from deep in his throat without realizing he was making any noise at all. Waldo swept the zombie's feet out from under it. With its arms bent unnaturally like an undead praying mantis, its head bounced on the street but didn't open up. Waldo pressed down so that the pipe rested against the monster's forehead, and he sawed back and forth. The sharp bits of metal raised off the side of the pipe cut into the zombie's brow deeper and deeper as the rest of the mob drew closer. Finally, the head broke and folded apart and opened like a rotten pumpkin. The zombie went limp in a puddle of its own brains. He couldn't explain why he had bothered. Maybe he just wanted to prove to himself that he could still kill one. All right. Okay. Up and ready to go again. Waldo backed onto the sidewalk with his rusty pipe wet along the middle. All right. He turned toward the intersection, thinking maybe he should focus all his energy on forward progress. Always toward escape. There were plenty of zombies in his path he needed to deal with. Checking his flanks one more time. He took a hard swing in hopes of going through 3 heads at once. All right. The end of the long pipe looped into a small hole in the cinder block wall beside him. He couldn't have hit that opening on purpose if he had tried, but he managed it without looking this time. The 3 zombies in front of him kept coming. The ones behind, let's say the countless ones behind him were catching up. Alright, let's lowercase countless. You don't just capitalize words anytime you feel like it. Who do I think I am? E.E. Cummings? The 3 zombies in front of him kept coming. The countless ones behind him were catching up. Waldo endeavored... Ooh, we're getting fancy. That's an awful fancy word for a zombie story. endeavored to pull his overlong weapon free, but several blue arms reached out from that darkness and clutched the pipe. He couldn't afford the delay. Waldo levered the pipe to and fro. And let me spell pipe correctly. Levered the pipe to and fro, snapping the arms at their joints. Zombies didn't care about catastrophic injuries like that, but he was able to force his pipe. Okay, come on now. Let's spell force correctly. To force his pipe weapon free. Okay, let me do a comma there. Along with a few more inches of crumbling cinder block dust. He squared for a second attempt at a 3-head hit when the wall continued to collapse and a dozen bodies with broken arms tumbled out, teeth first. Waldo settled for another forward dodge. And let's say swept the pipe low, bowling the 3 zombies in front of him by taking out their ankles. It was, okay, I'm going to make that the same paragraph, hold on. It was less satisfying, but he moved forward again. All right. Sorry, I'm checking notes here, because believe it or not, I do have a plan. All right, here we are. 1 zombie ahead. Despite all his, used the word blunders already, but despite all his blunders so far, he only had 1 in his path at the moment. This was it. Finally clear of walls and lampposts. He could really take this one's head off. Waldo swung for the fences. At that moment, the lone zombie gave a wide open growl, like it was yawning. Okay. Waldo caught it clean in the mouth without even touching its teeth above or below. The cheeks and jowls rippled with the strike and felt oddly spongy under Waldo's hands. As might be expected, zombies were much like toddlers or animals. It locked down instinctively on the pipe, let's say on the thing in its mouth. As more bodies closed in behind him. No, let's change this around. As the tide of bodies washed along behind him, Waldo tried to wrestle the pipe free of the zombie's jaws. He staggered the creature around the sidewalk, but had no luck overcoming that bite strength. Maybe if he had more leverage, it would be different. But the zombie held, let's say the biter. The biter held the pipe firm near the middle. Okay. With a sigh, Waldo let it go and looked to step off the sidewalk at the corner. The pipe bonged off the back of his head. Waldo spun around and brought his hands up to defend himself. He took another shot from the other side, square against his ear. Okay. All right, against his ear. He saw, let's say, lights flashed in his vision, and dizziness washed over him as his hot ear rung loud inside his head. Okay, his hands did block the third hit, but still struck his face as he tumbled to the sidewalk, or to the street. Let's say tumbled off the sidewalk. It's called a micro chronology problem when you, because obviously he has to fall off the sidewalk into the street. But if you say he fell, he tumbled into the street off the sidewalk, you got it backwards how the things went, and sometimes it messes up how people view the story. But also editors and publishers don't like it. Not that this story is going to a specific publisher or anything. His hands did block the third hit, but still struck his face as he tumbled off the sidewalk into the street. The zombie, holding the pipe in its mouth, stepped off and reached for him. Oh no. Waldo scooted backward and scrambled to his feet. He had no intention of getting piled under another one of these stink bags. All right. Moving right along. All right. No sooner had he taken to his feet again. There's a mower going on outside over there, and they're through the woods out there. They're putting on a roof, so you might hear some mowing and some nail guns. I arranged that in honor of Armand Rosamalia, who uses nail gun sounds as the background for his writing. No sooner had he taken to his feet again than the pipe battered him from both sides. The nail gun guy is working it hard right now here too. Well, at least you're not streaming today, so maybe maybe he'll take a day off tomorrow. But although roofers are really hard workers, and so I don't foresee him taking a day off. We'll just have to get used to the world going on around us as we sit around writing our silly little stories. No sooner had he taken to his feet again than the pipe battered him from both sides. Let's have him cuss again. No, let's not have him cuss again. Are you kidding me? We'll do this cuss here. This damn zombie was like an excited dog that got a stick far too big to handle. Alright, so let me mark off all these notes. Waldo spun in circles further and further. I think it should be farther and farther, but we'll do further. Waldo spun in circles further and further into the center of a new street, trying to get clear of this rusty undead pugil. There's no way I spelled that right the first time. I don't even think I spelled it close enough for them to get. I'm going to leave it for now and I'll look it up later. Alright. Okay. Laughter. Someone was laughing. Another exclamation point. Good Lord, Jay. You're so self-indulgent. Alright. Someone was laughing. The metal pipe zombie growled over its rusty treat. Waldo gave another spin and saw faces everywhere. Each one twisted into a humorless snarl. But still, someone was laughing. Bum bum bum. New chapter. Alright. I'm going to center that number 3. That's what all the fancy authors do. Alright. Now, who's laughing? Let's find out. Laughter from above drifted down into the center of disaster where Waldo found himself. Found himself harassed from all sides. He looked up into a face that still appeared very much alive. Let's say he looked high above. So let's make it be clear that this is high above him. Alright. The girl was pretty. Young, but he couldn't tell how young. She had long, no, say her dark hair hung long and loose as she looked down on him from a 4th-story roof. All right, now we got some context. Who knew this would turn into a rom-com? Hey, I said the girl's young. He's not necessarily interested in her. Come on now. All right. Loose hair, bad idea. Oh, I guess that's true. That something silly is happening. She laughs at him. He sees her for the first time. This is a rom-com. Oh, Tom just realized I just changed the whole genre. All right. Okay. Loose hair. That was a bad idea. Although Waldo had little room to criticize. I see Jennifer Aniston in the lead female role of this. Oh, you guys are laughing, but when I get my Netflix deal for this and I get huge and then don't answer your calls anymore, you too will call me a genius. All right, loose hair. That was a bad idea, although Waldo had little room to criticize with how his day was rolling out. He had just handed a zombie. He just handed some zombie a weapon to beat him up with. Hadn't he? Still, long hair hanging loose was an invitation to be dragged to your death by the undead. All right. Moving right along with the Jennifer Aniston character, I guess. And no offense, Jennifer Aniston is a lovely woman, but I think this is a younger character. He wasn't close enough to say for certain it was a girl, laughing at him as he fought for his life. They could be a young man, could be non-binary. Alright, let me see if I can spell that right. Oh, the lawnmower's here. Do you guys have any questions for the guy mowing the neighbor's lawn? I can shout him out the window real quick. Okay. Could be non-binary. Waldo had no problem with that sort of thing. Let's say over the years, he had met many survivors with that identity. A lot, in fact. So many that he wondered what made them special in the apocalypse. He supposed they had been natural survivors fighting to live even before the end of the world. the person above with their loose hair stopped laughing, turned their head, and vanished. Vanished from sight. Alright. Cruising through this story. Alright. More movement from the same spot. More bodies. These did not have hair, and some were missing their scalps. Waldo listened for a scream, but only heard the growls and moans all around him. Then bodies flung themselves backward and flipped over the side. They fell to the sidewalk and burst, flinging rotten splatter far enough to speckle Waldo's face. Come on, he muttered. More bodies took to the air and twirled toward the street. Waldo took to his heels and fled the undead around the street and the ones falling from above. Okay, so we've introduced who appears to be a living character. Okay, you suppose they had been natural survivors fighting to live even before the end of the world. The important thing was that this was a living person in the midst of a dead city with him. He knew why he was here, but why this other, let's say good-humored, well, it's not good humor if you're laughing at somebody in the street. All right, why this other visitor why this other visitor? Why was this other visitor around? Okay. I'm going to need to work on that sentence. I can already feel it's kind of a jumbled mess. It implies that he has a purpose for being here, but doesn't know what her purpose is, and we don't know what his purpose is yet. Waldo took to his heels and fled the undead around the street and the ones falling from above. All right. Let me get back to my notes. No, let me add one more thing here. A few of the bodies managed to keep crawling after impact, and they keyed onto Waldo's location. All right, there we go. Good stuff. All right. Again, he'd tarried far too long. One creature with the bulk of a bodybuilder seized Waldo's right arm. The corpse, so say the reanimated corpse, had lost some definition since dying, but still had enough muscle to ragdoll Waldo along toward its mouth. Good job. That's good stuff. All right. So what's going to happen here? The fingers lacked nails. That was fortunate, as the digits dug in deep. It probably just meant this bulky zombie had grabbed and ended many people in the past. Waldo imagined in life that this hulk of a man spent a lot of time flexing in mirrors and arguing about the benefits of the keto diet. There we go. That's good stuff. Okay. Waldo tried to pull away, but felt the futility of it almost immediately. At least I made someone laugh one more time before I was done, he thought. Okay. All right, plowing right along. All right, what happens? The body builder cadaver opened perfectly white teeth They had to be capped, but that wasn't going to save Waldo now. The creature hesitated. Drew back from... Well, let's spell hesitated right. Just for clarity's sake. That's the only reason I spell things right, is so that people understand what I'm writing. All right, the creature hesitated, drew back from the unfulfilled bite, and sniffed the gore-covered arm. Let's say Waldo felt the grip ease ever so slightly. That was all the invitation he needed. He pulled his arm free, leaving finger paint swirls in the dark film over his forearm. With not a scratch or a tooth mark, Waldo ran with everyone but the body builder still in pursuit. The hesitation struck Waldo as odd, obviously, but he had no time to think about it. Maybe the lack of thinking was part of his troubles today, but this situation called for more action than reflection. There we go. All right. All right, how long was this? All right, I was going to split it here, but I've changed a few things. So he hadn't gotten far before he spied ahead at disaster. Let's say real disaster. Real disaster in his way. If he'd had a moment to consider, he might have taken another course at the previous intersection. But in his defense, he was being pummeled by a zombie with a pipe in its mouth. That one was still back there somewhere, along with half the city that had joined the mob of zombies during this misadventure. All right, that's good stuff. I'm excited about that. Let's keep the action going. All right. The problem was the street ahead lay blocked. It wasn't sawhorses nor police cars parked nose to trunk. Okay. No, this was a pile of debris stacked high from building to building and extending back into the city beyond the impassable barrier. It had to be the rubble from an entire building coming down. Probably because of the jackasses who laid the concrete in this neighborhood. All right. I think people who lay concrete do a fine job. Waldo's having a bad day and he's trying to blame it on someone else. That's what's going on here. So don't take this personally. Okay. He ran on anyway toward the impassable barrier. He might be able to crawl over without breaking an ankle, but the closer he got, the more he doubted it. Okay, we're doing good here. All right. Waldo decided to search out another weapon. Another weapon in all this spillage. Okay, what do we find here? As he drew to the edge, ahead of the ones behind him, the rubble stirred. First hands, then heads, then busted torsos. hold free, as if they'd been waiting for him all this time. Metal stuck out of the rotten flesh like deadly spines. It was a lot of metal. Okay, let me make this a new paragraph because we're talking about the metal sticking out of the zombies. Alright. It was a lot of metal. All of it was sharp. And every zombie coming forth appeared, let's say presented like a pack of rusty porcupines. Probably a group of porcupines has a different name, but I'll look that up later unless someone wants to pop it into the chat there. And every zombie coming forth presented like a pack of rusty porcupines. Okay, how come those shards of metal didn't pierce their brains? All right, first let's spell porcupines correctly, then we'll spell pierce correctly. All right. How come those shards of metal didn't pierce their brains? How could all that rubble not have smushed their skulls? Waldo supposed every walking zombie represented a very unlucky human and a fortunate corpse. Okay, there we go. Let's say a fortunate monster. Fortunate undead monster. I don't know if that's a clever turn of phrase, but I'm going to leave it in. Maybe somebody will think it's good. All right. As they emerged and reached for him, Waldo leaned away and sidled around. Teeth and nails were bad enough. Okay, I'm going to scroll up here. Teeth and nails were bad enough, but these bastards had extra metal claws sticking through their hands to dice up Waldo into easy to eat pieces. He kept backing away and shifting around out. Okay, I need a comma there. Out of their reach. but they continued to try to cut him or spear him simply by dumbly walking into him. As he changed direction, again and again, they jostled each other, throwing sparks off each other's spines, each other's quills, and slicing more decayed flesh from each other's bones. All right, good deal. Okay. Okay. In desperation, Waldo scaled up the grill of a misshapen engine block. Okay, let's spell misshapen correctly. That's not right. Come on. A misshapen engine block. Of what used to be a semi truck, now mostly covered in this old avalanche. No chance I spelled this right the first time. I did. I spelled avalanche correctly the first time. Somebody clip that. All right. Now mostly covered in this old avalanche of apartment building. Okay. Okay, to cut into easy pieces each other's bones, let's say Waldo remained keenly aware of the ordinary zombies still approaching along the street. Okay, good stuff. All right. It wasn't an easy climb. But he pulled himself up onto. It wasn't not easy. Come on, Jay. They're just words. Spell them. All right. They're just words. Write your words. It wasn't an easy climb, but he pulled himself up onto the bent hood and pulled his legs away from reach a moment before he heard a moment before the metal studded zombies scraped loudly against the half crushed truck. There we go. I think I did something wrong with semi-truck. Okay, semi-truck is hyphenated. Stole a word from me. Okay. Half-crushed truck. All right, what are you going to do with this half-crushed truck? All right. Hands pawed against the smeared and nearly opaque inside of the cab's windshield. Jesus. Waldo breathed. Someone was in there when all this stone came pouring down. They died trapped inside. Okay. A blade of sheet metal poked the hood inches from Waldo's fingers. Drawing back, the shard dug a silver scratch. Through the faded red paint job. He pulled his hands toward his body and then climbed over the smeared glass to the roof of the big truck. All right, now what do we got next? The metal surface started to crumple under his weight. Waldo stood with his knees bent, prepared to jump, but he hadn't surveyed Come on, Jay, what's wrong with you? You don't know how to make a contraction anymore? All right, he hadn't surveyed where to land yet. The metal popped a couple more times, but didn't feel like it was going to collapse. He could feel the hands hitting the ceiling of the cab under his feet, but that was it. This might be a good spot to rest for a minute, he thought. Okay, now something hit him in the back of the head. Waldo crouched and turned, but there was nothing and no one there. How could one of them get up here? More and more gathered below, but the rubble and truck foiled their progress. Good stuff, good stuff. All right. Something popped him in the back of the head again from the other side. He spun that way and crouched lower still. Still nothing. The metal under him crinkled. Thought maybe someone was throwing stuff at him. It couldn't be a zombie, but maybe it was that girl. It was that girl from earlier. Okay, maybe it was that girl from earlier. Okay. She had sort of thrown zombies off a roof at him, hadn't she? He listened for her laughter as he watched for another thrown rock. It was impossible to hear anything over the growls below. The creaking and popping of the metal truck. The shrill screech, shrill screeches from the metal sticking out of some of those zombies, and some other how would you describe it? Some other grinding noise he couldn't quite place. He finally raised up again, only to see zombie feet all around him. Waldo flailed, all around him. Waldo flailed his arms, trying to get them away, but the feet kept kicking him. He couldn't make sense of it. Finally, he looked up by accident and saw two zombies hanging from nooses off the leaning power pole and transformer box above. Okay. He stared in wonder. So he stared in wonder at their bulging eyes. He stared in wonder at their bulging eyes and the loops of the ropes pulling deep into the strained flesh of their necks. I need to start paying more attention to my surroundings. Before I end up. Alright, let's put do an M dash. Of course, you have to hit 3 buttons to get an M dash because nobody cares about writers. Alright, I need to start paying more attention to my surroundings before I end up. His words cut off as one of the zombies' big toes stuck, let's say slipped into his open mouth. Alright, so now he has a zombie toe in his mouth. That's the stuff you don't get anywhere else. Alright. He unconsciously tried to swallow his own tongue to avoid tasting this terrible thing. But it was far too late. Not only did it taste far worse than any rotten meat he had ever imagined, but his tongue also explored the texture of the rough and billowing fungus under the toenail. The stuff was hard and yet chalky. It had grown so thick, either before or after the hanging man died, that it had lifted the nail up at a severe angle. The rounded edge of the nail tickled the roof of Waldo's mouth. Maybe if he had a condiment to use. Now, Armand doesn't like condiments. If he had to have a zombie toe in his mouth, having ketchup or mustard or something else on it would just make it worse. All right. Waldo gave a horrified groan as he threw his head back and pulled his lips off the light blue toe. Pulled his lips off the light blue toe and the raised yellowed nail. As expected, the cluster of toe fungus under the thick nail was white, was stark white. Stark white. But he didn't expect that excessive growth from the nail bed to look so much like cotton. Alright, we'll say the toe on that swinging foot glistened with Waldo's saliva. He bent over and did his best. He bent over and his body did its best to heave up everything he had ever eaten his entire life. But his stomach was empty. So only one clear strand of drool strung out from the surface of his tongue, from the surface of his tongue. The ketchup would be worse than the toe. If I were writing this for Armand, there would be a lot of condiments in the scene. Okay, so only, I don't know why I wrote old. So only one clear strand of drool strung from the surface of his tongue to the metal roof. He thought he saw flakes of the white fungus in the drool. So he heaved dry once more. The taste was never going to leave his mouth. He tried to scrape the flavor off his tongue. Okay, let's spell flavor correctly. Flavor off his tongue with his teeth and the inside of his cheeks. It lingered. The aftertaste was almost worse than the initial shock of the violation. All right. Oh God. He gagged. Oh. Alright, I think there's a comma between oh and God, because you're addressing God, right? Oh God in heaven. I have to be infected now. Maybe no one in history had ever become a zombie in a worse way. The ropes continued to creak. Good Lord, come on. I'm almost done here because I've passed my 5,000 mark, but I want to kind of get at a stopping point where I won't have trouble picking up tomorrow. Maybe no one in history had ever become a zombie in a worse way. The ropes continued to creak above him. The ropes continued to creak above him, and their odd shadows danced around him. Okay, Waldo threw his arms. I may need to do something besides through, because there's always throwing going on here. Waldo threw his arms in frustration, striking their shins. Let's say strike. I need to remind people how many of them there are up here. Striking the shins of the two hanged zombies, and sent them swinging wider and harder. Okay. One rope snapped. And the zombie folded down beside Waldo. Of course, it was... Okay, hold on. Of course is one word. Of course... Good grief. Okay, I'm just misspelling everything. Of course, it had to be the one that made Waldo suck its toe. Boom. Okay. Infected by foot play. Well, I mean, in any situation, zombie or not, you really should be dealing with clean feet during those situations, but I'm not here to judge. All right, I am at 5,296 words, so past my 5,000 word mark. I probably should break that chapter somewhere near here. In fact, I just might. And I may read chapter 3 to lead into this tomorrow. I think that's a good place to break it. Okay, so let me mark down where I stopped. Okay, sucking toes, rope snaps. Okay, that's where I'll pick up tomorrow, and we will continue Waldo's perilous journey through this city. Okay, so we're at 5,297, so let's check in. First of all, let's update my NaNoWriMo. Total words, 5,297. All right, update progress. Well on my way to my goal. Ruthless, Rabid, Raging, Ravenous, Rampaging, Remorseless, Repulsive, Revolting, Repugnant zombies. We are 5,297 words into that wonderful story. Maybe the greatest zombie story ever told. I don't know. But we'll see. I'm on a 2-day streak. Look at me. And now we're going to take a look at some of my friends. Now I'm going to do this carefully so I do not show any of my buddies that have not given me permission to do so. Tom Duffy. Let's see how he's doing. All right, so we'll pull him right on up. Tom, I think you're still here. Okay. He is writing The Light Fantastic. I don't know if that title was up yesterday, the first time I looked. That's an interesting image there. I don't know if that's the actual cover title or a placeholder. Either way, it looks kind of cool. He's at 5,532 words, so well ahead of me and well ahead of pace at this point. Now, I've seen this a couple times. Tom and I talked about this yesterday. Last time I checked, like mid to late evening yesterday, he was at 3,000 words and some change. His goal was to get 4,000 because he said he wanted kind of a cushion here at the beginning because, of course, life gets in the way when you're writing. So if you have a big goal, getting ahead is sometimes better than even staying on pace. Then when I checked first thing this morning, he was at 4,000 words and some change, so he met that goal, it appeared. And now he's at 5,532 words so far. So very good job. He is updated more than once in a day. I hardly ever get that badge. He is a pantser. Back up your writing. He does that as well. So very good job. Jumping to Armand. He is writing Man Down, First Coast Thrillers, Book 3. Book 1 of that series is available for pre-order now and will come out January 15th. Obviously, he has the second book already written and is working on the third book now. He has good experience with thrillers. Like I said yesterday, his Dirty Deeds crime fiction series is one of my favorites, and this one is a thriller. He joins a pantheon of great thriller authors in the Florida area. Now, he is already past the 5,000 word mark, and I'm sure he's not even done for today. So well ahead of pace, and loaded up more than once, updated more than once. Writer Wellness, Armand won the badge an hour ago, so apparently he's taking care of himself here. which is important. All right, so very good job, Armand. Now he's challenging himself a little more. This book is probably just over 60,000 words is what he thinks he's going to get. He said he would be happy to make the 50,000 words, but of course anything closer to the goal would be great too. So he's kind of on pace to really push to that extended goal. But of course, if he makes 50,000 words, he's not going to be mad at himself, I don't think. Armand is a streamer on Twitch as well. He does Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so he's writing in between. So you'll not get the entire book right now, which you wouldn't want anyway. You want to read the whole series, I guarantee it. But on Wednesday, he'll pick up where he is and go through. And the great thing about Armand's writing is that he does characters very well. He mixes them into chapters, and so in each chapter you kind of get as the story's going forward, you kind of get a vignette of a character or two. You get to know them, you get to know where they play in the story and so forth. So no matter where you come in on that book, you're finding good stuff. Now, of course, once he's finished with this, you're going to want to pre-order that first book and grab all the books going through. I think he would obviously agree with me that that's the best plan going forward. All right, so we'll keep an eye on Armand as we go along. He's a champ at this sort of thing. Peter Germany gave me permission to look at his Nano page as well. I try not to look at anyone's page. I don't look at anyone's page without permission. He's past the 5,000 word mark, so a lot of us seem to have the same idea. I think there's this notion that if you get ahead and finish early, that's better than letting yourself fall behind one day. Hopefully we can all keep this pace. If you do 2,500 words a day, which roughly would come out to the 5,000 words after 2 days, you can finish by the 20th, and that's good because you'll be finished before Thanksgiving and holidays and all that. But again, there's nothing wrong with moving forward, and there's nothing wrong going beyond the 50,000 words if that's what you need. His story is Sliced by Night. That's an interesting title. I like good titles. That's kind of a thing that I really strive for, whether I'm doing a short story or anything else. And Peter Germany has a reputation for busting on ahead, so he may go beyond this 2,500 word target. He's also part of the Mondo Method audience, and they follow Armand and Chuck Buda, who run that podcast and encourage each other to write. So very good job, Peter Germany. All right. Who else gave me permission to look at theirs? All right, Ryan Pelton, we had looked at yesterday, and my system hadn't updated yet, so I hadn't seen his progress. But Ryan is at 3,107 words. I believe that's on pace, and I don't even think I don't think we have an update for today. So that may just be what he accomplished yesterday. So very good job. I need to ask him what DMIN stands for that novel. So if I remember, I'll get an answer to that as we keep up with his pace. So very good job, Ryan. I'm proud of you too. He is writing the Bandit Chronicles Book 2. I don't think he had that updated yesterday, or my system hadn't updated yet. He's at 2,458 words. There's a leaf blower outside. If anybody's interested, if you have any questions for the guy blowing leaves, let me know. I'll shout him out the window to him. Alex from Iowa, a relatively new writer, but working his way to improve his work and get things published, and especially in the short story region. And appears that he is tackling a novel now, Curse of the Blood Moon. And he's at 2,635 words. We saw this title yesterday, Demons and Disasters, and I think that may be the official cover, and it looks good. That's the kind of cover people buy books from. I believe this is yesterday's totals added up. So he was at 1,756, and so that's over that 1,666 daily total that would get you to 50,000 in 30 days. So he is on pace, doing well. He updated more than once yesterday, so I imagine he's going to get some stuff in today. So good job there, and we're looking forward to seeing what you accomplish. I always root for Chuck Buda. I want him to do well. I know that, and he, of course, being on the podcast, we get to see all his struggles with writing, and he went through some dry spells. There's a lot of life stuff, moving stuff, work stuff that gets in the way of him writing as much as he wants to. But looking at yesterday's update, he's gotten 1,046 words. So he's getting it done. He hasn't updated for today. So if he keeps up his pace, maybe even picks up a little bit, then he should be in good shape to get along with whatever this story is. It's an untitled story, so we don't know how far he's gotten. But he still has writing to do today, so if he updates today, he may be in a good position to achieve NaNoWriMo this year. Chuck, being on the podcast, The Mondo Method, with Armand Rosamilia, has always been quite honest with where he is in his writing and that sort of thing, and NaNoWriMo really isn't the place where he shines, and by that I don't mean that he's not a great writer, but I do mean that the format and all this has not lended itself well to his style of writing and his ability to get done what he wants to get done and needs to get done. I know that after a NaNoWriMo in the past, his production kind of dropped off. It was actually one that he completed, I think, but he just felt burned out by it, and I think he's struggled with that some over the years. And so the fact that he's willing to come back in here and try it again, even if maybe Armand is coercing him to as part of the podcast, just shows a certain resilience that he's willing to continue to go after it, even at times when the words don't come easy. So you can take inspiration from that and be proud of Chuck for sticking with it. I'm rooting for him again this year, and I hope that these updates and everything else he hears encourages him to keep going. It appears that he's doing the second book in his infamous series. So he's got one day down, 340 words. He's doing a 35,000 word goal. Now, he'll still want to keep pace to keep up to that, but I find that interesting because a lot of people always go for that 50,000 word goal. And one thing I've been a proponent of in the past is that more people should set a lower goal. And I'm not encouraging people to achieve less. What I'm saying is, especially if you struggle with NaNoWriMo, if your writing style is not lended to 50,000 words in a month, and maybe not especially the month of November, then setting a lower goal, going to 35,000 words, may be more your speed. And especially if you're erratic, maybe he's doing 340 words one day, but he's going to do a couple thousand another day and back and forth like that. So if you write in sort of spurts like that, then a lower word count goal may lend itself to your success. And if someone's doing a goal of 50,000 words and they only make 35,000, that's still 35,000 words, and that's a novella. So that should be seen as a success. But because that goal is set so lofty, anything short of it kind of feels like we failed. And so I commend Lucas here for going for the lower word count, which may be the length of that particular book, and so that he'll get done what he needs to get done. It may be a more realistic goal for his schedule and what he has going on this month. So I think more people should consider that. People who don't take on NaNoWriMo because of the 50,000 words should consider maybe a lower goal and just go for that, because you can still experience the camaraderie, and there's nothing wrong with taking that approach. So excellent job, Lucas, and we'll be rooting for you the whole month.